we're doing 9-4 ellipses. You might want to pause and write all this down first, but I'll go ahead and start explaining it. These are ellipses. You have a major axis, which is your longest side, and a minor axis, which is your shorter side. And it's important to remember that A is always the biggest, so your A is on the x-axis because, again, this is the longest side. And you will have a focus point. These are your focus points. The distance from the center to the focus point is still C. You have an equation just like before with parabolas. You had A equals 1 over 4C. This time you have A squared equals B squared plus C squared. And you will use that to help you find different parts of your graph and your equation. An equation of an ellipse looks like this. You will always have x squared plus y squared equals 1. And underneath, depending on which is the longer side, you will have an a squared and a b squared. You just need to remember that your a always goes under the longest side. And the reason it's underneath x in this one is because x is the longer direction. And then you have your focus point, which is C, 0, negative C, 0, which I wrote right here. Here you have an ellipse that is longer on the y direction, so your major axis is on the y, and your minor axis is on the x. It's the same equation, a squared equals b squared plus c squared. If you notice, you still have x squared plus y squared equals 1. And a goes underneath y this time because it is longer in the y direction. Your focus point is 0C and 0, negative C. Let's get into example number 1. We have y squared over 16 plus, or excuse me, x squared over 16 plus y squared over 25 equals 1. You know that your longer side is going to be in the y direction because 25 is bigger than 16. So you're going to have an ellipse that looks like this instead of like this. So that means that your a squared has to equal 25 because a is always the biggest, and your b squared is going to be 16. And we don't know what c or c squared is, but we can find it. So let's go ahead and graph what we know. We know that if a squared is 25, that a is just 5, and that's going to be on the y direction. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And b is going to be 4 because 4 times 4 is 16. And that's underneath x, so it's over 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Your focus is always going to be on the longer side, so it's going to be on the y. So we have to use our equation in order to find what c is. So I know that I have 25 equals 16 plus c squared. I'm going to subtract 16. I'm going to get 9 equals c squared. So c, when you square root both sides, c just equals 3. So that means you are 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And if you had to label those, it would be 0, 3, and this one's negative, and 0, 3. So those would be your focus points. And you've graphed the whole thing. Let's do another one. Let's say I gave you x squared plus 25y squared equals 100. Now, you don't have any fractions fractions here, but you know that you need this to equal 1 because in our equations that I gave you, we always had it equal to 1. So we can just divide everything by 100, and we'll have x squared over 100 plus 25 goes into 100 4 times equals 100 divided by 100 is 1. So this is your equation, and if I asked you to graph it and find your focus points, you would be able to. You would know that your a squared is 100 because it's the biggest. Your b squared is 4, and we would need to find out what c is. So a is just going to be the square root of that is 10. The square root of 4 is 2. And a is underneath the x-axis, so we're over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Your 4 is underneath the y squared, so we're going to be up 2, down 2. And now if you notice, your major axis is on the x, and your minor is on the y. We will use our equation to find the focus points. We'll have 100 equals 4 plus c squared. Subtract 4. I get 96 equals c squared. You're going to have to find the square root of 96. When you do that, you end up getting plus or minus 4 square root of 6 equals c. And we'll plot this at when you plug 4 radical 6 in your calculator, you get about 9.7 or 8 about. So you're over here, here's 9 and a little bit more. Here's 9 and a little bit more. And you would make sure that you leave your focus points when you write them in radical form. So here would be your 2 focus points. Example number 3, I think we're on. Sometimes it might give you your x-intercepts and your y-intercepts and ask you to write an equation. So it might tell you that you have an x-intercept of plus or minus 3 and a y-intercept of plus or minus 4. So let's go ahead and graph that so that we can start writing our equation. X is 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Our y is 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And we know that our major axis is on the y because this is bigger. So we know we're going to have x squared plus y squared equals 1. And we know that 4 is going to have to go underneath the y because that's the y-intercept. So if a is 4, then a squared is 4 times 4 is 16. So we'll write 16. And if b is 3, then b squared is 9. And then we have our equation. Last one, example number 4. Sometimes it'll say find an equation of an ellipse given 2 focus points. So something like this will give you 0, -5, and 0, 5. And it will also give you your sum of focal radii. And what that means is when you have your parabola and you have your major axis, it's giving you that distance. So that distance is going to equal 2a. So always make 2a equal to 20, or whatever it is. This is your sum of focal radii. So when you look up here on your notes, your major axis is 2a. This whole thing together, 2 of these is a. So if you look here, we're going to kind of graph this a little bit just to help us kind of see how we could find our equation. You know that your 0, 5, this is focus point, 0, -5, and a, if you divide by 2 equals 10, so that means that 10 plus 10 is 20. That's how you're getting your sum of focal radii. So if this is 5, this is not drawn to scale, my goodness, but let's say that this is going to be 10, and this will be 10. So you know that you're going to have a parabola, or an ellipse, my goodness, that has a major axis on the y. So that means that your a is 10, so a squared has to be 100. Okay, because a is always the biggest, and it's on the y, so we're going to have 100 here. But we need to find out what b squared is. So, if you remember, we have our equation, and we know what c is. C was 5. So I can plug in what we know. I know that a is 100, b we're trying to find, and c, if c is 5, then c squared is 25. So I'll subtract 25. I have 75 equals b squared, and I want it as b squared because I just need to plug it in here. So my final answer for my equation is x squared over 75